Chris Paul entered the 2020 NBA season very underrated, and after playing amazing during his time with the Houston Rockets, essentially pushing one of the greatest teams of all time, the 2018 Warriors, to their limit, I couldn't figure out why people were sleeping on him this year. I believe initially, as most teams do, the Thunder and Chris Paul played to their expectations. They started off the season with an unimpressive 7-11 record through November, and since this is most likely the last we've seen of the 2020 NBA season, the Thunder would finish 40-24 and own the 5th seed in a stacked Western Conference. And they're led by CP3, currently averaging 17.7 points per game and 6.8 assists. However, his offensive numbers have consistently trended upwards from the inception of the season, despite the fact that he's been written off as a 34-year-old injury-prone veteran who's past his prime. Therefore, I felt this was the perfect opportunity to do a long overdue and much requested sequel to our Paradigm Shift episode on Chris Paul. In this video, we'll again analyze the mechanical components that facilitate Chris Paul's game and teach you guys how to implement them. We'll also cover the mental game of Chris Paul and why it's perfect for the Thunder's current system and personnel. And also guys, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe if you haven't already for more weekly videos just like this. Like we said in our last video, it's both CP3's ability to accelerate and decelerate, in addition to his elite level balance that's essentially the foundation of his game. This allows him to change directions quickly, stop on a dime, and make plays in time and space that others simply can't. So how do we develop this? First of all, we have to reverse engineer what is acceleration and deceleration. All it is simply changing speeds from fast to slow. And what does this ability require? Elite acceleration and deceleration essentially just boils down to having elite quickness, speed, explosiveness, and the brake system to control that. If you played basketball long enough, we've all seen players who are super explosive but can't control their own speed. This definitely is not going to be effective if you plan to be an elite level point guard. Now let's take a look at Chris Paul's physique. He's 6 feet, 175 pounds, but he has a very low center of gravity, big glutes, huge calves, and they provide him with elite level balance. By NBA standards, he's a bulldog amongst greyhounds, and CP3 kind of structures his game around that physique. It allows him to naturally stick on a dime and operate. He's physically predisposed to have an elite level brake system, which is definitely not always the case in NBA level athletes. We develop this with the players that we train by first improving the proprioception in their feet. This will establish a better communication and awareness in the interface between your body and the ground. We primarily use things like slant boards and balance pipes, things we've covered in a bunch of our other videos. If you guys are interested, I'll put a link in the description, but we have a complete basketball-specific program for this over on our Patreon. The other thing we do with our athletes is a lot of eccentric overload training. This essentially improves strength during the lowering phase of a movement. As I learned from listening to a lot of Paul Favorites' podcasts, it's important to know that we're significantly stronger eccentrically than concentrically. So generally speaking, in any dynamic workout, we'll be limited by our concentric strength. So if we overload our eccentric phase in things like pistol squats or Bulgarian split squats, we can take advantage of this fact and train our muscles to load, control, and absorb force rapidly on the way down, which is essentially components to any brake system. So the more force you can safely control on the way down, the faster you can play. Just as it's true that the faster the vehicle, the better the brake system has to be, it's also true that the better the brake system, the faster you can build the vehicle. And that's a primary reason why we focus on eccentric overload training and foot proprioception. You're training your athlete to be able to stop on a dime and make reads and plays. Like I said on the last video, one of the most neglected ways to improve court vision is to work on your balance, because balance affords you more time to stop, get a view of the actions transpiring on the floor, and operate accordingly. It also allows him to attack in transition at full speed and pull up out of nowhere. And that's why he's so valuable, especially for this team. But again, this all goes back to the fact that at the beginning of the year, Chris Paul and the Oklahoma City Thunder were being completely disrespected and underrated. From the jump, I believe this was the most talented team they've had in a long time, and the additions of SGA, Gallo, and CP3 were a significant upgrade to Russell Westbrook and Paul George. This video ended up being a lot longer than I anticipated, so I'm going to divide it into 2 parts. This will be the first one, and on the next video we're going to cover Chris Paul's psychology and mentality within the Oklahoma City Thunder, and also the X's and O's of the Oklahoma City Thunder right now and why it's perfect for Chris Paul at this stage in his career. As always guys, please like, subscribe, and share, and we'll see you on part 2 of this series.